The debut album from A Tribe Called Quest, People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm, is a classic that would not only put them on the map, but also lay the blueprint for where they would go for their next two classic albums, The Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders. And today, we're diving all the way into this album, breaking down how it was made, why it still sounds fresh today, and just enjoying every step of the way. Welcome to week 1 of Camp Digs, where we're diving into 6 classic albums in 6 weeks. This week, it's 90s week, so we're diving into our first album, People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm by A Tribe Called Quest. Here's what to expect with Camp Digs. First, you're gonna want to sign up for the Patreon for free. There's a lot more to experience, as you'll see, patreon.com/diggingthegreats. Every Monday, I'll announce the album of the week. We're covering different decades, mostly focused around hip-hop, though we've got a funk week coming, and we even have a week where you'll vote on the album. Once the album is announced, everybody doing the camp will listen to this album on your own throughout the week. You'll know the ins and outs of this album yourself. I'll collect stories from you directly on Patreon related to the album, and on Wednesday, I'll post my video breaking down this album. That's this video right now. I might get into the samples, get into the lyrics, the historical significance. We'll hear from some of you about what this album means to you, maybe some lesser known facts, why you think this album is a classic. And this video will be on YouTube with the extended edit on the Kick It and Producers tier on Patreon, where there's more music, more commentary, and just more fun. But then on Friday, there's my favorite part, the weekly Campfire Livestream. We'll all get together on Patreon for a free live stream where we hang out, listen to this album together, and enjoy a drink or food that I've paired specifically with this album. There will also be giveaways during the live streams too. It's gonna be a good time. Now, if you just want to watch the videos on YouTube, that's up to you, but the full experience is over on Patreon. And if you're on the paid tier, you'll get the extended edit, but everything else is on the free tier, so go sign up, patreon.com/diggingthegreats. Okay, now that that's taken care of, let's get into this week's album. It's 90s week, which is one of the hardest weeks because there is just so much good music to choose from. But I had to make a call at some point, so we're here to talk about the first album from A Tribe Called Quest, People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm. Talk about a mouthful. People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm by A Tribe Called Quest. Hey, what album you listening to? That sounds really cool. Oh, it's People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm by A Tribe Called Quest. Not making it easy for us. This album was released in 1990 and is so important because this is a Native Tongues album, and also it's the birth of A Tribe Called Quest themselves. This album is an absolute classic and the very first album to receive a perfect 5-mic rating from The Source. So I want to talk about the Native Tongues and the birth of A Tribe Called Quest, but I want to start by just diving into this album. So let's start with the first track, Push It Along. This is the opening track on Tribe's first album, so this is the very first thing we hear from A Tribe Called Quest. This is the birth of Tribe. Literally, like we hear those ethereal sounds, whooshes, and a crying baby. So after that intro, we get to the primary beat. And right out of the gate, this feels like A Tribe Called Quest. You got those drums, you got this jazzy sample. Q-Tip has a verse, we have the gang vocal on the hook. Phife Dawg then has a verse, but Q-Tip carries most of this song. Push it along, push it along, push it along, yeah. And near the end of the song, we get a proper introduction from Jarobi White announcing each member. Ali Shaheed Muhammad, Phife, and as Jarobi says, the leader, Q-Tip. Underneath all of this is a looped sample from Jagger the Dagger by Eugene McDaniels from 1971.
All right, yeah.
But pause right there. Let's talk about the Native Tongues and the birth of Tribe. I've done multiple videos on the Native Tongues and Tribe already, so if you want to dive deeper, you should go check those out. But quickly, the reason the Native Tongues are such a big deal is because they represent a step in a different direction for hip-hop. It's jazzy, it's fun, it's Afrocentric. In 1988, just months apart, two albums were released. Straight Outta Compton by NWA and Straight Out the Jungle by the Jungle Brothers. These albums are very different lyrically and musically, and just the whole vibe. This is the first album from the Native Tongues, a loose collective of artists. Q-Tip is actually featured on this album, and this was followed by 1989's 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul, and then we get to 1990, we get Tribe's debut, the album we're talking about today. There are other great albums in there as well, like Queen Latifah's All Hail the Queen from 1989. Moni Love has an album in 1990 as well, but there's another track that's very important. Hold up, wait a minute. This is the song Buddy by De La Soul, specifically the Native Tongues Decision version. This song features every single artist I just mentioned. De La Soul, Jungle Brothers, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, and Q-Tip and Phife. And in each of their verses, Tip and Phife say they're from A Tribe Called Quest, even though this album is not out yet.
For the Phife from A Tribe Called Quest, I'm the Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest.
This is going to connect to another element, but I want to keep moving. We're only on the first track of this album, so let's talk about the next song, Luck of Lucien. This beat is so good, so classic, but it's really pretty simple. We start with a sample from All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. Love, 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 bum. You're familiar, right? But then the main groove is from 40 Days by Billy Brooks from 1974. The verses are all Q-Tip, but we also hear Lucien Revolution. Forgive me if I'm saying that incorrectly. He's a French hip-hop artist who was featured on an Africa Bambaataa song. What I love about this album is that it's, as we just looked at, the birth of A Tribe Called Quest. The production on Luck of Lucien is very straightforward. It's not as layered and complex as where they go with their next albums, The Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders. In the verses, on this album, it's almost entirely Q-Tip. Even when it's not Q-Tip, it's still Q-Tip. As Phife explained, it's actually difficult for me to talk about that first album, being that I really had zero to do with it. I was hardly around. Q-Tip wrote all the lyrics, his and mine. Not that I couldn't write, but I wasn't an official member of the group then. I was working on my own stuff, and 1 or 2 cameos with A Tribe Called Quest was gonna set me up to do solo, as well as form a duo with Jarobi. Basically, on that first album for me was in the same way that you found out about Q-Tip via the Jungle Brothers. You know what I mean? That was the start of all that. So when we get to the next track, After Hours, it's all Q-Tip on the verses again. We've got some more layers of samples in there, some scratching, presumably from Ali, and at the end, Jarobi comes back with that recurring Jagger the Dagger loop.
And I left back my footprints.
This is not the same tribe that we get with the Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders, but the signs are all there. Jarobi would leave the group after this album, but still be around. Phife would come into his own, balancing out Q-Tip's verses. And Tip and Ali would continue to push the production to new levels, resulting in some of the best, cleanest sounding hip-hop beats of all time. Let's take a look at the next song, Footprints, and the layers of samples in there. So I've recreated this beat in Ableton. Let's take a quick look at it. This top track here, the yellow, this is the original track, Footprints. Of course, the very first thing we hear are these horns. That is sampled from Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder from 1976. Here's the original of that. That's this orange track right here. All we need is this first horn line right here. I've copied it down here, pasted it a few times. I pitched it down, put some EQ on it, and then I have a volume automation that's going quieter to louder. Check it out. But then we have a sample from Think Twice by Donald Byrd from 1975. I'm going to zoom all the way out here. Here's that whole track, this grayed out section, and then this is all we need. Let's solo this and listen to it. And then similarly, this is pitched down slightly. We got a little EQ on here, you can see that. Let's take a listen to this loop. Of Of course, then the drums come in a little bit later. This is sampled from a Public Enemy remix from 1987. Let's add that with the Donald Byrd sample. And then when we get to the hook, the Sir Duke horns come back and we get all three of those samples layered together. Let's take a listen. We can clearly see Q-Tip and Ali merging jazz, soul, and hip-hop all together, even in just these samples. And by the way, if you're in the producers tier on Patreon, you can go download this Ableton recreation right now. The next track on this album is an absolute classic, I Left My Wallet in El Segundo. This song peaked at number 9 on the US rap charts. It tells the story of, well, yeah, Q-Tip losing his wallet in El Segundo. It's just a very fun, simple song with Q-Tip on the verses and Ali with a few lines. This is a complete side note, but I've always thought that this song sounds similar to another song from the 90s, and since it's 90s week here at Camp Diggs, let's get into it very briefly. So here is I Left My Wallet in El Segundo. The sample here is from the song Funky by the Chambers Brothers from 1971. And that guitar line, right, is not exactly the same, but it sounds very familiar to another song from a few years later in the 90s. Tell me if you catch it. This is Fly by Sugar Ray from 1997. Look, I'm not saying they ripped it off, but they kind of ripped it off. It's not the same sample. Sugar Ray is adding that guitar line in there, but it's so similar that it feels like maybe Sugar Ray was trying to sound like Tribe. I don't know. You decide. This album has several other Tribe classics like, well, let's first talk about Bonita Applebum. This is a classic song about Q-Tip having a thing for a woman with a particular feature, you might say. But this whole song is Q-Tip trying to woo this woman, and especially for 1990, this soft, gentler approach, trying to get with a woman, was a welcome change to how women in hip-hop are often treated. I've recreated this beat in Ableton as well. This is another one you can download in the producers tier, but there are a few main samples here. One is from the song Daylight by R.I.P from 1977. This red track right here, this is the original sample from R.I.P. We just need that beginning part, this part that I've highlighted in red. Again, I have pasted this down here, I've EQ'd it, and I've pitched it up just a little bit, as you can see here. The drums are from the song Fool Yourself by Little Beat from 1973. So I've pasted it down here. Again, you can see I got a compressor, I got some EQ, and then of course I have pitched it up in order to speed it up. And here is what that new drum track sounds like. Let's add that with a ramp sample. Now you may notice we're still missing an element. We're missing that hook line from Memory Band by the Rotary Connection from 1967. You knew this, I don't have to tell you. So that's this orange one up here. So this part is the hook that we keep coming back to. This part is the intro of Bonita. So now let's listen to this whole thing all together, starting from the drums here with the hook. This song, Bonita, was also, of course, sampled itself in 1996 for the Fugees' rendition of Killing Me Softly. But here's the craziest part about this beat. Q-Tip originally made it when he was 15, and he made it on a pause tape. As he explained, I did a lot of people's Instinctive Travels already on pause tapes before we started recording when I was in the 10th grade at 16 years old. Actually, I did Bonita Applebum when I was 15. I had a couple different versions of that song, and then I flipped it to another version when I turned 18. Presumably, some of the beats were remade on better gear, but who knows? The fact that Q-Tip made this when he was 15, but this song came out 5 years later when he was 20 in 1990, that's crazy. A Tribe Called Quest had just been brewing this whole time, bubbling up, ready to change everything. And then of course there's the song, Can I Kick It? I've already done another video breaking down this song. It's so good. It's the Lou Reed sample of Walk on the Wild Side, featuring Herbie Flowers on bass. That's the one where he's playing upright bass and electric bass overdubbed to get that iconic sound.
Can I kick it? Yes, you can. Can I kick it? Yes, you can.
There are other samples in this song as well, but the story with Lou Reed is he cleared the sample and then took 100% of the song. Can I Kick It is one of Tribe's biggest hits, and they've never seen a dime from it. But the best part of this song, by far, is the fact that Phife Dawg is featured once again. Q-Tip takes the first verse, Phife takes the second. They both have an equal share in the verses here. And we're getting another glimpse into where Tribe would go. It's no longer just the Q-Tip show. Phife is coming into his own in the group and holding it down. We also get more from Phife on the track Mr. Muhammad, and on Ham and Eggs, we get a back and forth between Q-Tip and Phife, which feels like a preview of things to come on songs like Check the Rhyme.
A tisket, a tasket, what's in mama's basket? Some veggie links and some fish that's...
You know, we're doing the Campfire Livestream on Friday, and there's a food and drink pairing that go with it. I was searching through this album, and I'm like, okay, where are all the food references? What are the drink references? Like, what can I put together for this? And Ham and Eggs has so many food references. There are a few other tracks that I'm skipping through, but the album ends with another single, Description of a Fool. And the main sample here is Running Away by Roy Ayers Ubiquity. Rest in peace, Roy Ayers, by the way. And that sample also on Ramp from Bonita Applebum. That's another Roy Ayers project. But this whole album is so good. The whole thing is light and fun, and it's just a feel-good album. You got jazzy beats with smooth rhymes on top. It's a Native Tongues classic, and it's a preview of where Tribe would go in every aspect. The production would get more layered and complex. Phife would become a much more important part of the group, and when you elevate both of those things, that's when you get to masterpieces like The Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders. As Ali Shaheed Muhammad said, LL Cool J, Big Daddy Kane, KRS-One, NWA, and even Public Enemy had a tough guy image. It was this bravado at the time that all the hip-hop artists had. People's Instinctive Travels wasn't any of that. We weren't trying to be tough guys. It was about having fun, being lighthearted, being witty, being poetic, just being good with one another. That's what we presented. Just be. Just exist. Be comfortable in your own skin. People's Instinctive Travels was about celebrating you, whoever you are. This is one of those albums that showed you could make meaningful, fun hip-hop without the tough persona that dominated the scene. And the influence of this album and A Tribe Called Quest in general can be heard directly in artists like Jay Dilla, The Roots, Common, Erykah Badu. They all followed in this jazzier tradition that Tribe helped pioneer. Artists like Pharrell, Andre 3000, Kanye, and Pusha T have all cited Tribe as a major influence. And the fact that we're still talking about this album 35 years later, that tells you everything you need to know about its lasting impact on music history. So we're wrapping up the midway video on week 1 of Camp Digs, but before we do, I want to hear from some of you about what this album means to you, what you remember, and what it feels like now.
Hello, my name is Morgan. I'm 16 years old, and I first heard People's Instinctive Travels in the Passive Rhythm when I was 12 going on 13. Those sounds that I heard on the album, that were just so different. I had never heard anything like that before. Because mainly I was listening to like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and like psych 60s rock type stuff. But while I listened to Tribe, I was like, oh, like they're sampling like Lou Reed. They even sampled, you know, the All You Need Is Love intro. So it was pretty cool. But for me, hip hop expanded my music taste. Like I listen to a bunch of different stuff now. Like of course I got into Jay Dilla. You had to get into Jay Dilla, Big Tribe, and Kanye. It was just like a vantage point for not just hip hop, but just a vantage point for music in general for me. Like Tribe helped me to listen and appreciate music in a different way. To hear all parts of a record and appreciate all parts of a record.
So when I was in middle school in Spanish 1, my teacher was teaching us different words in Spanish. One of them was bonita for pretty. And to teach us, she would play Bonita Applebum and tell us that's how you remember because she's got it going on if she's Bonita. And now every single time someone says Bonita in Spanish, I think of Bonita Applebum.
The next thing happening is the Campfire Livestream that's happening later this week. We're going to listen to this album all together all the way down. So go to patreon.com/diggingthegrades and sign up for free to get the link, the recipe for the food pairing, and I'll see you there. I cannot wait to listen to this album with you all together. All right. That's it. I'm turning the camera off. Go get the link, man. Patreon.com/diggingthegrades. Just go do it. I'll see you there.